A hunter handed me his revolver at a trailhead outside Cook City 2 Septembers back and asked me if it was enough gun for a Grizzly. .44 Magnum, 4-inch barrel, good holster, worn leather, carried a lot. He'd read that the .44 was the floor. Anything under it, he said, and you're a statistic. His words, not mine. Now, I've checked sidearms at trailheads in that country for 35 years. I've written up the paperwork after men used those sidearms on bears. And I've stood on a range and watched grown men flinch a heavy revolver so bad they couldn't keep it on a paper plate at 7 yards. So I know something the forum that told him about that floor doesn't. The gun in his hand had the power. What it didn't have, what no gun on this list really fixes, was the thing standing behind it. He's not dumb. He got talked into a caliber answer to a question that was never really about caliber, same as a lot of good folks do, and that is exactly why I made this. So here's what we're going to do. I ranked every deadly predator in America against that one revolver, from the animal it turns inside out to the animal where it finally fails. Coyote to grizzly, all 6. And I'll lay out the standard I'm measuring against in just a minute. But before we go one step further, you need to hear this. The place where it fails is going to start an argument in the comments, because it breaks the rule the whole hunting internet swears by. It is not that you needed a bigger caliber. It is not the cartridge failing at all. The thing that fails is standing behind the gun. And there's something a man can carry on his other hip that beat every firearm in the record I'm about to show you. Don't skip. Don't jump to the Grizzly at the end, because if you skip, you'll get the ranking and miss the only part that changes what you carry. I'm Hank Mercer, 35 years a game warden in the Montana backcountry, and years after that guiding elk and bear hunts in country where the big bears live. I'm not here to sell you a revolver. I don't sell anything. I'm here to keep you from betting your life on the wrong variable, which is a mistake I've watched good men make more than once. So let's set the standard, because everything below gets measured against it. The rough rule serious hunters have used for generations is that it takes about 1,000 foot-pounds of energy to cleanly and ethically kill a deer. You'll hear the number argued anywhere from 900 up to 1,200. The NRA's old Whitetail Handbook liked 1,200 as an optimum. I'll use 1,000 as the reference, and I'll be straight with you about what it is. It's a rule of thumb, not physics. Energy alone doesn't kill anything. Terminal ballistics kill, where the bullet goes and how deep it drives. But it's the number every man watching has argued about at a tailgate, so it's the number we'll hang everything on. A deer is thin-skinned and lighter than most of the animals we're about to talk about. That 1,000 foot-pounds is the reference for everything below. Now, measure the revolver against it. A standard 240-grain factory .44 Magnum leaves a 6.5-inch barrel around 1,350 feet per second and makes right about 970 foot-pounds. Read that again. Your basic factory load is sitting a hair under the clean kill floor for a deer, and men carry that exact load against bears. Load it up right and the picture changes. A 300-grain hardcast bear load runs slower, maybe 1,150 to 1,250 feet per second, but it's built to drive straight and deep, 900 to just under 1,200 foot-pounds, depending on who loaded it. Put the same round through an 18-inch lever carbine and you're over 1,500 foot-pounds. But here's the thing. Nobody carries a carbine on his hip when a bear comes out of the brush at 40 feet. And that's the trap, before we've met a single animal. Bullet construction is everything. A 240-grain hollow point that opens up is a deer bullet. A 300-grain hardcast that stays intact is a penetration bullet. And you cannot have both in one cartridge. You've got 5 or 6 rounds, then a reload. No man finishes with a bear closing. The round has the power for almost everything on this list. The question that actually decides whether you walk out isn't on the ballistics chart. It's whether you can put the second and third shot exactly where the first one went, in about 2 seconds with something heavy coming straight at you. Hold on to that. It's the whole video. The villain here isn't a company, it's a habit, the stopping power marketing machine that needs you to believe survival is a number you can buy, and the caliber arms race that sells you up a size every few years. That's the business. It's not a conspiracy, it's just what sells. So every animal gets the same 4 questions. What is it by the real numbers? How does it actually hurt a man? Where does the 44 meet the yardstick? And what actually keeps you alive? Which, fair warning, is often not the gun. Let's run them. Number 1 is the coyote, and it's the easiest animal on this list by a fair piece. A western coyote runs 25 to 40 pounds. Think about that against the standard. 970 foot-pounds into a 30-pound animal is overkill so far past the line it's almost funny. You're bringing 30 times the energy per pound that you'd bring to a deer. Any solid center hit ends it. The 44 doesn't just stop a coyote, it turns it inside out, and you almost never need it to. Here's the record. In a compilation of coyote attacks across the United States and Canada, researchers counted 348 victims between 1977 and 2015. Out of all of those, 2 were fatal. 2. And that's a compilation of news reports, not a controlled study, so it undercounts the little nips that never got written up. I'll tell you that straight rather than pretend the number is cleaner than it is. When a coyote does hurt somebody, it's a bite to the throat or the limbs, and the target is almost always a small child, because a coyote sizes up prey, and a grown man doesn't read as prey. Here's the wrinkle most folks don't know. The coyote in the eastern half of the country isn't quite the same animal as the one out west. It carries wolf in it. People call it the coy wolf, and it's bigger and bolder. Both of those 2 fatal attacks tell that story. The first was the only confirmed fatal coyote attack in United States history. A 3-year-old girl, Kelly Keene, killed in the driveway of her home in Glendale, California in August of 1981. The second, and the only adult ever killed, was a 19-year-old folk singer named Taylor Mitchell, hiking alone on the Skyline Trail in Cape Breton Highlands National Park in Nova Scotia in October of 2009. Those were eastern coyotes, the ones with wolf in the blood. And here's the real defense, because it isn't the revolver. Both of those tragedies trace back to the same root, coyotes that had lost their fear of people. Coyotes get bold from being fed, not from being hungry. Don't feed them. Don't leave food out. Keep small kids and dogs close. And if one comes in, get big and get loud. Your voice and your size end 99 encounters out of 100 before a gun ever enters into it. The 44 is overkill for the coyote. What'll actually save a life here is not letting the animal get comfortable in the first place. Which brings up an animal you're even less likely to ever shoot, and where the danger isn't the teeth at all. Number 2 is the bobcat, and I'll be honest with you up front. It barely belongs on a list of things that can hurt you. A bobcat runs 15 to 35 pounds. That's a big house cat with an attitude. Against the yardstick, this is overkill to the point of absurdity. There's no measuring to do. If you ever center punch a bobcat with a .44 Magnum, the story isn't the cartridge. The story is rabies. A healthy bobcat wants nothing to do with you and is gone before you've got a hand on your holster. The rare time one comes at a person, it's launching at the face and neck and clawing, and nearly every documented case involves a sick animal. So the danger isn't the damage, it's the disease. And I'll tell you plainly, there's no famous killed by a bobcat case to walk you through, because there essentially isn't one. I looked. What accounts there are come from scattered local news, not any compiled data set, and I'm not going to dress that up as more than it is. So here's the wrinkle and the real defense together. With a bobcat, the round in your gun is the least important thing about the whole encounter. The thing that actually treats a bobcat attack is a post-exposure rabies series at a hospital. The gun is a footnote. The emergency room is the point. And the tell is the behavior. If a small cat comes at you with no fear, that missing fear is itself the warning that something's wrong with the animal. Those were the two you'll almost never draw on. From here, it changes. Now we're talking about animals that can put a grown man down, and the first one comes in numbers. Number 3 is the gray wolf, and this is where fear and reality split the widest on the whole list. A wolf runs 70 to 120 pounds and up. Against the yardstick, the 44 is plenty, ample energy for a 100-pound canid, and a single solid hit is decisive. On paper, it's not a hard problem. The problem, like you'll keep hearing, isn't the cartridge. Here's the reality that'll surprise people. Fatal wild wolf attacks in North America are so rare, the modern record holds just a handful. The two most cited are Kenton Carnegie, taken in Saskatchewan in 2005, and Candace Berner, a 32-year-old schoolteacher killed while she was out jogging near Chignik Lake, Alaska in March of 2010. And I'll be square with you. Wolf fatality attribution gets argued case by case, so treat that as a tiny handful of confirmed events, not a tidy statistic. The way a wolf hurts you, when it happens, is the pack. They're coursing predators. They run prey down, hamstring it, pull it off its feet. That's the opposite of a standing broadside, which is exactly the shot a revolver wants and rarely gets from a moving animal with company. But here's the wrinkle. The danger with wolves is numbers and habituation, not toughness. A wolf is far easier to stop than a bear with half its reputation. What's out of line is how scared people are of wolves against how seldom a wolf ever touches a person. And the real defense reads like the coyotes, one size up. Stand tall, be loud, don't run. Running is what flips a curious animal into a predator, and it's very likely what happened to that young woman jogging alone. Nearly every serious wolf incident traces back to animals that got habituated, fed or conditioned to people and camps. Keep a clean camp, keep your distance, don't run. The gun is the last line, not the first. Quick gut check before we climb. If a breakdown that separates how scared people are from how often it actually happens, the honest version instead of the campfire version, is what you came for, subscribe. That's the whole channel. Number 4 is the mountain lion, and this is the 44's best animal on the entire list. Let me give it its due. A cougar runs 90 to 160 pounds, thin-skinned, lighter than any bear we've got left. The energy is far more than enough. If you get that revolver up and on target, the 44 ends a lion emphatically. On the ballistics alone, this is the perfect matchup. Now here's the honest problem, and it's the one the whole video's been walking toward. The record shows roughly 27 to 32 fatal cougar attacks in North America since 1890. The exact count depends on whose list and what they'll confirm, so I'll give you the range instead of pretending at a single number. The Mountain Lion Foundation puts it at about 0.18 fatal attacks a year, and only about 15% of known attacks are fatal at all. Rare. But look at how a lion kills, because that's the whole thing. It's an ambush. It comes from behind and above at the base of the skull, and the entire strategy is that you never see it coming. Read that against the perfect matchup. The cartridge is ideal and almost beside the point because the lion's attack isn't built to beat a bullet. It's built to beat your reaction time. And a gun you can't get to is a gun you don't have. That's the honest problem in one sentence, and hold on to it because it's a preview of exactly why the top of this list fails. So the real defense against a lion isn't in your holster, it's your eyes. Awareness beats caliber here every single time. If you do get grabbed, fight. People have driven lions off with bare hands and rocks and fists. Never crouch, never run, never turn your back. Face it, get big, and keep your kids in front of you where you can see them. That's not a knock on the 44. It's the plain truth of how that predator works. And that's the seam in this list. Everything up to here has been an animal that makes the shot harder. From here on, we cross into animals where the question stops being whether the 44 is enough gun, and starts being whether you can run the gun at all. Number 5 is the black bear, and this is where most folks have the animal exactly backwards. Against the yardstick, the 44 has plenty of energy for a black bear. But this is the first animal on the list where the load in your cylinder can fail you, and I'll show you why. Here's the record, and it's a good one, peer-reviewed. Stephen Herrero and his colleagues went back through every known fatal black bear attack in North America from 1900 to 2009 and published it in the Journal of Wildlife Management. 63 people killed, 59 separate incidents across 110 years. Set that against a black bear population somewhere around 800,000 to 900,000 animals. This bear kills fewer than one person a year on average. That's the record, not my opinion. But the numbers inside those numbers are what matter. In 88% of those fatal attacks, the bear was acting as a predator, not defending cubs, not startled off a carcass, but treating a person as food. And 92% of those predatory bears were male. Let that land because it turns the campfire story on its head. The black bear you should worry about is not the mother with cubs. It's the lone male that treats you as a meal, quiet, deliberate, often in broad daylight, sometimes following. Not a burst of temper, a hunt. Here's the wrinkle. Those attacks get more common the farther north you go. Herrero found 3.5 times as many fatal attacks in Canada and Alaska, with only about 1 3/4 times the bears. Nobody's certain why, but the leading idea is leaner country and hungrier bears. And this is where bullet construction stops being trivia. A 300-grain hardcast will drive through a black bear's vitals from most any angle. But that 240-grain hollow point built for deer? On a heavy bore, through shoulder and muscle, it can open up early and stop short of what it needed to reach. Plenty of energy, wrong bullet, and you've got a wounded predatory bear at close range. The gun didn't fail. The box you grabbed off the shelf did. So the real defense. If a black bear is coming at you as a predator, silent, pressing in, won't be scared off, you fight. You don't play dead. Playing dead is for a defensive grizzly, and we're about to get to that. Spray works, a firearm works, if you can deliver either one. But the encounter itself is usually preventable. In 38% of those fatal cases, human food or garbage is what put the bear there in the first place. Clean camp, stored food, and a hard read on any bear that won't leave. Which brings us to the top of the list. The animal where the gun stops being the answer at all. That's 4 rungs of me telling you the cartridge matters less than you think. If you'd rather have the version the investigations actually support than the version the forums sell you, that's this channel. Subscribe and stay for the one that matters most. Number 6 is the grizzly, the brown bear. This is where the .44 Magnum fails, and I need you to hear exactly what I mean by that word, because it is not what the thumbnail led you to expect. I'll start with the thing I don't talk about much. In 35 years, I was the one who wrote up what a bear did to a man. That's not a story I tell. It's just why I'm particular about what I'm going to tell you now. Here are the animals. An interior grizzly runs 300 to 600 pounds and more. Coastal browns go far heavier. Around Yellowstone, the populations climbed from 136 bears in 1975 to something over 600 today. Across North America, grizzlies kill 2 to 3 people in an average year, about 11 a decade in the lower 48. Rare. But when it goes fast. A defensive grizzly covers 50 feet in about 2 seconds, faster than a racehorse over that ground. A surprised sow with cubs is the single most dangerous animal in North America, and she is on top of you before most men clear the holster. Now, everybody wants me to say the .44 is too small and you need a .500 Smith & Wesson. Let me give that argument its full due, because it's not stupid. A bigger bore means more energy, deeper penetration, more bone broken per shot. On paper, moving up from a .44 to a .454 Casull or a .500 is more gun for a bigger animal. They did the homework. They're not wrong about the ballistics. Here's where it dies against the yardstick anyway. There's a study, Tom Smith, Stephen Herrero and colleagues, in the Journal of Wildlife Management in 2012, that reviewed 269 bear firearm encounters in Alaska going back to 1883. 444 people, at least 367 bears. And here is the finding that ought to end the caliber argument. There was no meaningful difference in success between long guns and handguns. Long guns worked about 76% of the time, handguns about 84%. Now I'll be straight with you about that study because it matters. The authors set out to analyze why firearms failed, not to prove they work. So don't read 84% as a promise. Read it as this. When guns failed, they didn't fail for being too small a caliber. They failed because of poor aim, no time to get the gun up, or a jam. Every one of those is the shooter and the split second, not the bore diameter. Let me put a real case to it, and I pulled this from the investigation file. On September 2, 2010, an archery hunter was charged by a grizzly in the Paint Creek drainage, about 20 miles north-northeast of Coyote, Wyoming. He was carrying a Colt Anaconda .44 Magnum, 4-inch barrel, in a hip holster, but he carried it with an empty chamber under the hammer. He got it out, he fired, and he lived, with minor injuries. Investigators followed a blood trail about half a mile and never found the bear. Think about what that empty chamber cost him, the fraction of a second to cock a hammer against an animal closing at 50 feet in two. The .44 worked, the man survived, and the setup behind the gun still nearly wrote a different ending. One more thing on that case, and on every case like it. Prosecution was declined, but that's a legal call made after the fact. Grizzlies are protected under the Endangered Species Act in the lower 48. Every defensive killing gets investigated, and self-defense is a determination, not a guarantee. Check your state's regulations, because they vary by state and by season. So here's the most important, honest thing in this whole video, and I'm not going to dodge it. Bear spray beat every gun on this list. In the companion study, red pepper spray stopped a brown bear's aggression 92% of the time, and 98% of the people carrying it walked away uninjured. That's better than any firearm figure in the record, and it doesn't ask you to put a precise shot on a charging animal in 2 seconds under the worst stress of your life. The Grizzly isn't where the .44 is too small. It's where the man behind it runs out of time. The cartridge has the power to reach a grizzly's vitals with the right hardcast. What it can't do is make you faster, calmer, or more accurate than you trained to be. The .44 Magnum isn't the mistake at the top of this list. Believing the fix was a bigger number on the barrel, that's the mistake. The gun never failed the men in that record. The assumption did. Before I wrap it, let me clear the questions I know are already in the comments. What about a .454, a .460, a .500? More energy, yes, and more recoil, slower follow-ups, worse deliverability. Same trap, bigger. What about bison, moose, a polar bear? Out of scope for a predator list, but the deliverability logic only gets worse with more animal. Carbine versus revolver? The carbine wins the ballistics every time and loses the one that counts because it's not on your hip when the brush explodes. And hardcast versus hollow point? For anything bear-sized, hardcast. You're buying penetration and giving up expansion, and that's the right trade. So let's run them back. The Coyote, overkill, and you'll almost never need it. The bobcat, bring a rabies shot, not a bigger gun. The wolf, plenty of gun if you ever get the shot. The mountain lion, the perfect caliber for the wrong problem. The black bear, enough gun, but the wrong load will still fail you. And the grizzly, where it was never really about the gun. So what is the .44 Magnum, honestly? It's not the biggest thing you can carry into the backcountry. It's the biggest thing most men can actually shoot fast and true with something bearing down on them. That's the whole reason it has outlasted every cartridge built to replace it. Its ceiling isn't in the ballistics. It's in the 2 seconds you'll have and the hands you'll have them in. Here's what's worth writing down. 1. Match the load to the animal. Hardcast for bears, and know you traded expansion for penetration when you did it. 2. Spray first, revolver backup. The numbers aren't close, and I'm not going to pretend they are. 3. Train the draw and the follow-up cold, because the second shot is the one that saves you. And 4. See it first. Awareness beats caliber every time, and it's free. Check your state's regulations before you carry or use anything on a protected animal. And the honest truth under all of it, the best bear gun on this list is the one you never have to draw, because you saw the country, you made your noise, and you kept your distance. Everything after that is damage control. If I could only keep 3 things going into grizzly country tomorrow, it wouldn't be 3 guns. It'd be bear spray for the plain odds. A .44 I can run fast and clean for backup, and the habit of paying attention, which is what keeps the other 2 in the holster. That's the honest 3. Carry the gun, just don't carry the belief that it's the whole answer. So tell me in the comments, and be honest, what's actually on your hip in bear country, and when's the last time you drew it cold and put 3 fast rounds where you meant to? Somebody watching is heading into that country for the first time this fall, and a straight answer from a man who's carried out there will do more for him than any chart I could put on the screen. If the honest version of what a cartridge can and can't do is what you want, every time out, subscribe and you'll have it. Next time I'm taking the bear spray versus bullets numbers all the way apart, the studies, the failures, and exactly when spray doesn't work, because it isn't never. You'll want to hear where that line is before you decide what rides on your belt. Watch your distance and watch your back trail.